It's okay, you're going to call growing pains. But we did have reasonable votes. We won. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, the Board of Public Works, Edward R. Roybal hearing room, joined by the Honorable Councilman Jose Huizar. And hopefully I don't jinx this agenda. We might go through it sooner than we think. How are our cards? Any public speaking cards?
We have speaker cards on item 10 only.
Okay, item 10.
Oh, and there's one for public comment and one for public comment.
Okay.
Oh, you actually, did you give one for
So
item?
one on item number 9
Okay.
and one on item 10.
I just got a card for item 9 from Mr. Weiss.
Oh, why is coming to bat twice? Okay. All right, so let's go through this. And maybe we should set the clock because I think we're going to go pretty fast. On number 1, we have a request for withdrawal from Commission nominee Mr. Guadalupe P. Solis from the proposed appointment to the South LA Area Planning Commission. Roberto, am I taking your job?
No, sir.
Okay.
That's a note. Oh, go ahead.
That's a note and file, right?
Yes.
Item number 2, Roberto?
That's a motion, Gruel. Rosenthal, it's asking for the city's process and collection of expenditure for transportation mitigation funds to be studied. And if you like to read the action, Council.
Yes, we can concur with the Transportation Committee and refer to DOT and request the Planning Department provide input. On this, Councilman Huizar, you have anything else you want to add to that? Okay. Item number 3.
Item 3, I believe it's a CAO report relative to the Construction Services Trust Fund.
Okay, we will continue that to October 7th for the City Attorney's Office. Item number 4.
That's a zone change, Councilman, in CD 7. It's for the proposed removal of 2 single-family dwellings and the construction of 17 new 2-story detached single-family homes.
So we can put that on the consent calendar. And do you agree, Councilman?
Yes.
Item number 5.
Item 5, again, is a zone change, Councilman. It's in CD 7. It's for the construction of 33, for a 33-unit residential condo project.
For the council office request in District 7, Councilman Alarcon, we will continue that to October 7th. Item number 6.
Item 6 is a zone change again. This is for a maximum new 3 parcel single-family development in CD 7.
Okay, so that's a consent, I believe.
Yes.
And next one.
Item 7, Councilman, is a report from the Planning Department. It's in response to a motion Perry Reyes requesting recommendations to preserve the identity of the Little Tokyo community, and I believe staff is present.
We can note and file the City Planning Department's report dated May 13th, 2008, inasmuch as the report was provided for information only and contains information on the department plans to maintain existing boundaries of the Central City Community Plan, including the Little Tokyo community, and to consider the development of design guidelines, land use changes, and other planning implementation tools to promote and preserve Little Tokyo's unique character through the Central City Community Plan, and that would be a consent. Next item.
Item 8 is the Director of Planning's status report.
And we have a no report on both.
Item 9, Councilman, is the weekly status report on condo conversions.
And this is where the drum roll begins. And Mr. Noel Weiss, you're up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mr. Reyes. I appreciate it.
This is number 9.
This is number 9. Council members Noel Weiss, I wanted to ask actually a couple of things. One, this calls for Housing Department and Planning Department. I would ask that you, Mr. Reyes, or Mr. Huizar, ask the Housing Department to show up to explain to this committee why it is that we cannot get the Housing Department to notify tenants and conversions of their rights to terminate their lease upon the completion of and approval and acceptance of the tract map, terminate their lease and get their relocation money. That's clearly the law. You guys passed it. It's fair, it's right, it's appropriate, but housing doesn't let the people know. Housing has an obligation to let the people know, and I think part of this item and part of the dialogue that can be created as a result of your graciousness, Mr. Reyes, and putting it on the agenda on a regular basis is to make them respond. And then you will get the dialogue between housing and the people in a more efficient way, in a more effective way, and I think it'll allow you to make better policy that way. So this is like the first example because it's an easy one. Secondly, with regard to a report to the committee, two things. Number one, I've dealt with the planning department in getting them to adopt as a standard stock condition in demolitions basic, very simple things, such as the tenant's rights to relocation money, the tenant's rights basically to be notified in accordance with the Ellis Act provisions. This is and have it as a separate shell because it will, in effect, notify the tenants and also notify the speculators and the developers that they have this duty because people are just, these numbers are high and they're trying to dance around the law. Secondly, with regard to conversions, we talked about before having to equalize the treatment between tenants and conversions and tenants and demolitions. We don't have that yet, but one of the things that I am trying to get planning to adopt administratively is the idea, same thing, put it in the track maps, but secondly, the same conditions, but also require that no work on the common areas be done until the tenants have vacated. This is an important consideration, Mr. Reyes, because it goes on apparently quite a bit, where they go ahead, they start the work before the leases are over, and then people are constructively evicted. It's not right, it's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. And as long as you're at the podium, why don't you speak to number 10 before we go into closed session?
Okay. Thank you very much. This is an important one because
Roberto, can you just read number 10 into
Sure.
the record?
Councilman, item 10 is a city attorney report relative to a settlement offer for two cases, Environmental Housing Coalition, LA versus City of LA, and Hubbard versus City of LA.
Okay, so now we formally introduce item number 10. Mr. Weiss?
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. I asked for the record that the settlement letters be made officially part of the record. I think this settlement is an important consideration for the committee and the city council basically to take up at this time. Let me just say briefly, Einstein defines stupidity or idiocy as doing the same thing over and over, but expecting a different result each time. But here we are, hope springs eternal, and I think what we're asking in this situation is that the implementation ordinance for SB 18 that the council passed be suspended so that serious consideration of the issues that are brought up in the settlement can be undertaken. Now, why should the council do this? Number one, because confusion right now abounds, gentlemen and lady. We've got between building and safety, between planning, between housing, there's tremendous confusion, in part because of I think, what the council could have done that it didn't do. Secondly, there are legitimate issues that have been raised relative to the AB 283's impact. It's still the law of the state. And how it basically it ties in to this density bonus situation, because there are major issues, for example, in Wendy Gruhl's district, where the interaction of AB 283 with the zoning and with what the planning department has done and failed to do in terms of implementing on a regular basis that consistency criteria, it's vague, it's uncertain, and the planning and it wasn't focused in on, because if you start from an R1.5, it's a different density than if you start from R3 or R4. 3, politically, it's the right thing to do, because you can position yourself now to get your mixed income ordinance, Mr. Reyes, and you can also, for example, and TOPA as well. TOPA is now part of the housing element, just like the mixed income. If, in fact, we suspended this ordinance and we put into politically, I'm saying, you are in a situation, you already got 4 votes against it. It's not going to take that many more to basically put an opt-out provision where people could say it's a lot easier to adopt a mixed income ordinance, or even TOPA for that matter, if you give people an option to say, okay, we'll opt out of SB 1818 if in fact you enact or you construct a project consistent with these provisions. If I can just finish, because this is really, this is an important consideration that I think, the ebb and flow of the political situation here. It was not your intent, I am sure. It can't be. It would make no sense to destroy or allow to facilitate the destruction of more affordable housing than is being created. We have that anomaly now. We have it with the RSO units going down, and unfortunately the Garcetti-Gruhl amendment made it even worse, because you can be with Ellis buildings. So anyway, the bottom line is, we now, by suspending the ordinance, putting us in a position, the judge has offered his services to try to basically get the parties together on the terms of a concrete settlement. We can just stop and do this. I think it'll be a lot better. Okay, and one final point, thank you for your consideration. Only the City of LA, Mr. Reyes, did not do the environmental environmental review under CEQA. All of the other cities did. And I got to tell you, there's no reason to go through the cost and the time and the effort on both sides. City attorney's got a lot to do. If we can get it resolved now versus 5 or 6 months from now, worst case, at least I've got my marker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Now we'll go into closed session so we can have the room cleared. Thank you, Sergeant.
To do another session,
No?
because you're not the final decision maker. Barbara disagrees with me. In this one, it doesn't matter. If you want to vote in open session on the recommendation,
That's really
that
up
would be
to you.
fine.
All right. Okay, we're back on.
Yes.
Okay, we just heard from our city attorney on item 10, and the actions committee will be to support the city attorney's recommendation. That'll be the action of this committee. Okay. Now, for public comment. Do we have a card for public comment? Seeing none? Anybody here for public comment?
No, there isn't.
Okay, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.